It's time for the first Power Rankings of the year.
Some of these critics, these pundits,
I absolutely adore them lads. I have unbelievable time for them, but they're a great bunch, but it's not acceptable.
They'd like to play the hard man when they're on it. It's not very pleasant when you're trying to manage a team. All you're looking for is a bit of civility and a bit of decency, but they just miss you like you have nothing to do with the bloody occasion.
It's too early for this, isn't it? Like, isn't it too early in the year?
No.
I don't mean from my perspective. I mean from the public's perspective.
No, they're dying for this. Oh, and it's like there's been a gaping void in their lives over the last few months that you refuse to step into because last year, let's face it, didn't work out so well. You had the Dubs number one the whole way through. You probably had them number one even after Tyrone won.
Well, my point is that I guess is it just too early in the year for people to be corrected and to be given the most correct, flawless power rankings of all time. Like, I mean, January is a year of, letting yourself go a little bit. I mean, like, finish off the extra chocolate food or Christmas food, chocolates, whatever it may be. Treat yourself to being lazy. There's no need for people to be going out of their way, being corrected on their GAA takes. But I guess it's something we just have to do on this show. So the power rankings are here, the most correct power rankings. This is exactly how things are going to play out this year, with absolutely no exceptions. We'll go from county number 32 all the way up to county number 1, and I mean, I'm personally excited for the return of London this year, who were in at number 32, left out in the wilderness for the last couple of years, but they will be back. Could they make a move off bottom spot over the next little while? At number 31 is Waterford. At number 30 is Leitrim. Number 29 is Sligo. 28 is Carlow. 27 is Wicklow, and at number 26 is Louth, and at 25 is Wexford.
You're not giving Andy Moran a bit of a bounce, nothing?
Not until we see it. I mean, this is, like, I guess what we're doing here is we didn't properly assess where everybody landed at the end of 2021. I guess there was just enough to talk about when it came to Tyrone's results. We didn't actually look elsewhere, and what I'm judging a lot of this on is the performances of last year, not necessarily the results per se, because we'll get to that in a little while, but the performances. I think there might have been a bit of a skewing of certain counties here and there, but so until we see the Andy Moran effect on Leitrim, they won't be moving off that spot. So they're in 30th at the moment.
Dara O'Toole says we should name this entire segment Happy New Year.
Very good. Well, we'll see. Maybe they're in at number 1. Who knows? So that I would say that those first 8 counties we went through there are part of the bottom tier, and I think the bottom tier kind of continues as we move on to the next page. So when at number 24 is Laois. Laois had a bad year last year, so they'll be hoping to get back up and I guess try and have some sort of promotion challenge getting out of Division 3 this year, and some sort of championship that doesn't look like a 16-point defeat to Westmeath, which is how things began and ended for them last year. It was a bit of a disaster for them, and I had Longford and Antrim in that tier as well. So up to 22, I would say, is the sort of bottom tier. I would give Antrim every chance of progressing this year as well. They're at the top of that tier.
Right, this is getting interesting now. Tip behind Limerick.
Yeah, so if we move on then to what I think is the middle tier, like I do think you can maybe make a case that Antrim are on the edge. If we move on to the middle tier, really, which is Fermanagh at 21 all the way up to number 14, which we'll get to in a while. So it's Fermanagh at 21, Tip at 20, Limerick at 19, Cavan at 18, and Down at 17. And I did look back at our last power rankings of 2021, and we did have Limerick above Tip. So we did have Limerick above Tip, and that's how we have stuck with things this year. So just looking back on why that happened, I guess last year, you're looking back through the last couple of years, and Tipperary did beat Limerick in Championship by a point 2 seasons ago, and then last year in the Championship it was an 11-point defeat to Kerry in their only game. But then on top of that, Tipperary got relegated themselves, and Cavan obviously getting dragged down into Division 4. It's probably one of the most sensational National League stories we had last year. Limerick just looked that little bit better. They beat Tipperary, for example, in the National League last year. They didn't play each other in the Championship, and that is why they've edged themselves a little bit forward. Like, they had a good win, a 10-point win against Wicklow in the league last year. They had a narrow defeat to Offaly. Limerick had a good season last year. Tipperary had a very, very bad season, and that's reflected in Limerick being ahead of Tip. Cavan in at 18, as I mentioned. Down in at number 17. They got hockeyed by Donegal in the Ulster Championship last year in their only game. They were playing their football in Division 2 but managed to stay in the division after beating Laois on the last day of the season. In at number 16 is Offaly. So this is into the next page here, but still,
I think that, like, Offaly, Westmeath, Clare, all should be behind Cavan and Down. I would give super extra bonus points for being in the Ulster Championship, where it's impossible to tell how good you are because you're going up against the best teams in the country.
Like I absolutely take that, but the point, like, so the real question here would be around Cavan versus Offaly, for example. I do think Down managing to stay in the division and staying in Division 2 has
Down
them
should be ahead of all those.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure about that. Cavan, I think, at 18 are there because of the terrible league that they had last year, and then I guess there's no forgiveness in the Ulster Championship for them to try and turn that around, because they drew Tyrone and they got beaten by 8 points by Tyrone, and there was no way they could right the wrongs of what happened to them in the league. But what else are you going to do? Like, are we just supposed to pretend that everything was fine and them getting relegated to Division 4?
Well, we could run the simulation of what a proper championship would look like in our heads and go,
yeah,
if Cavan had 3 home games and 4 away games, or 4 home games and 3 away games, I think that they would finish towards the top of Division 3 at the moment.
I know,
and
but
they would be ahead of Clare, and that they would be ahead of Offaly, and that they would be ahead of Westmeath.
Well, let's see. But we can only judge what
are Westmeath on that page?
Westmeath are on are number 15. Yeah.
No. Did what? No.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think so. I think Westmeath has, like, well, they were the ones who dished out that massive leash hammering. Like, okay, so here's...
Okay, fair enough. Sorry.
So I am investing a lot in what happened in the Championship last year. But just to kind of go back to what happened with Cavan last year, we can't just necessarily box off the league as this sort of... Sorry, go on, you make your point.
Well, Wexford at the weekend. I mean, I
have not factored in pre-season competitions into this.
The O'Byrne Cup.
No.
Wexford scored 6 goals past. Anyway.
We can't just look at what happened in the league last year and just box it off as something totally insignificant if your case is to push Cavan up above 18th. Like, the last game that they played in the league last year to get relegated was against Wicklow, and they got beaten by Wicklow. So it's very hard to make a case that in a significant game when you're up against Wicklow and you get beaten, that you should be any higher than number 18. So that's why they're down where they are. Down ahead of them, Offaly ahead of them. Like, my hunch this year is that Offaly are one of the teams that do make a bit of progression, and they will move above Westmeath. Now, Westmeath did have a bad league themselves last year, but they were playing in Division 2. They were playing at a higher level than some of the other counties they're contending against this year, and they have been given a boost. I won't lie, they have been given a boost in these rankings because of that win against Laois, a 16-point win against a team that I thought at the time was of a similar standard. Didn't prove to be the case. So, I don't know. I mean, I can see where you're coming from on the Westmeath point on their ranking being a little bit inflated, but they are where they are. They're in at number 15. And then the last county, I would say, in this middle tier is Clare at number 14. Clare, obviously, like, they were in the picture to get promoted last year. They unfortunately got not drawn against Mayo. They got Mayo in their promotion head-to-head in Division 2, so they won't be playing Division 1 football. And then their only game of the Championship was against Kerry. The next tier, I would say, is the sort of the outsiders, where
Cork are clinging to that tier.
With
their bare fingernails.
With their bare fingernails. Yeah, I'm not going to...
You're kind of grandfathering them in to try and hype up a bit of Munster Football Championship, so that you could do a bit of Yarra in advance of the routine 12 to 15 point victory that Kerry have over Cork whenever they play them this year.
New manager, new players, a lot of underage success over the last few years. There's a reason to think that Cork will get back to at least a pretenders status over the next little while. Cork have been as high as 9 or 10 over the last few years in these rankings, so they have slipped back to 13, getting beaten by Kerry by 22 points. A lot of people, I will accept, should say that they should be down further than that. But I do think that Kerry were the form team in the country at that point and were beating up teams for fun. That was not long after they hammered Tyrone in the National League, for example. Their league was okay last year. I mean, they were in a relegation playoff, but they did beat Westmeath for that. They're still in Division 2. I'd give them a chance of getting promoted this year.
And they have Kerry straight up, isn't that it, this year in the Munster football?
Yeah, but at least there's a backdoor this year.
Yeah.
But also, that game's been played in Cork this year. So
is it?
Yeah, well, it was Clarny last year.
You always have trouble beating them by 15 points there. They score 2 early goals and then you score 6, and it's like...
Yeah, well, we will see. We will see how things go for the... Like, I know I've been calling this for a long time, for about 4 or 5 years at this point, but the Cork bounce is coming at some point.
No.
It will.
A dead cat's bounce.
It is a fact that it is going to happen at some point.
Is it?
It is too populous a county. They've had too much success at underage level.
In fairness, they have got their house in order. I'm wary of you speaking with your forked tongue about what's going to happen with Cork football.
Well,
Been banging on for like the boy who cried wolf at this point. It's like
they're in at number 13.
when the wolf is eating me, come back and tell me about it.
It's not. They're not even in the top 12 teams. So let's.
You said they're top tier though.
Let's not get. No, sorry. They're in the. What have I called them? The outsiders. These 5 counties that I've got are the outsiders. So
Les étrangers.
yeah, exactly. The other outsider next in the section is Roscommon in at number 12. I've put Derry in ahead of them at number 11. Derry were sensational last year. I think that this is a team that is poised to go into the top 10 this season. Like, talk about a county that have been brutalised by the fact that they exist in Ulster. 2 years without a back door. They got Armagh in 2020, Donegal in 2021. They lost those games by a combined total of 3 points.
Oof.
They're just in both of those games just a level below those two teams who were obviously top tier teams. The league last year, they were sensational, like the 19-point win against Fermanagh, the 16-point win against Longford, beating Offaly by 12 points in the league final last year was a seriously impressive performance from this Derry team, and they'll feel that they could have beaten Donegal on the day as well. So 11 may actually look to be not generous at all to Derry once we look back at this at the end of the season. A team that could definitely get into the top 10. The top 10 then, but still in the same tier, I would say, is Meath and Kildare, 10 and 9 respectively, and that is the end of the outsiders tier. I've got Kildare just ahead of Meath. I guess they beat Meath in the really pivotal game that they had last year, beating by 3 points in that promotion playoff, and Kildare, the team playing Division 1 football. Early signs from the new coaching ticket is that things are going to go well as well.
Well, look, it's exciting times. I think I'd probably have Derry ahead of the Meath and Kildare at the moment, just on the basis that they are Ulster football. The things they're a bit further down the line. It's year 3 of the management team, and it's, you know, so I would have higher expectations of them in a championship game. And if they met on a neutral field, I would make Derry favourites at the moment.
I'm not sure, and I don't think I'd go that far. I think, especially with Kildare, you've got a Division 1 team here in Kildare, and you've got a team who were playing Division 3 last year in Derry. Granted, way too good for Division 3,
Yeah,
and they'll be pushing into the upper reaches of Division 2.
But the league in the last couple of years was so short and abortive that it's hard to say that this is a traditional Division 1 team, Division 2 team, Division 3 team, Division 4 team at the moment, just because there was so short league campaigns.
Yeah.
So I just think that, like, you can throw a blanket over those teams largely. From if Cork and Kildare played 5 times on a neutral field, I would expect Kildare to come out as series winners. I don't think they'd win every game.
No.
But you wouldn't be terribly surprised if Cork won at least 2 of those games and it went down to a 5th game decider. And I think that's fairly similar with most of those. You know, that's why I was saying, I think if Down played Offaly 5 games, Down are going to beat Offaly 4 of those games. And that's why they should be ahead of them.
I'm not sure they would. It'd be a hell of a series though.
Wouldn't series like that be amazing?
Yeah, like, I mean, anybody in these kind of similar tiers, you would watch them regardless of what tier they're on, as long as they're in the same tier. And in fairness, I think a lot of these outsiders would have a hell of a chance against against some of the pretenders, which is what I'm calling this. So the numbers 8 to 5 here are the pretenders this year, and I think every single one of these counties are looking at what Tyrone did last year and think to themselves, why not us?
How far down did you have Tyrone last year? What was the lowest they reached? Do you remember?
I don't remember. They might have gone down to 5 or 6 after the Killarney debacle, but I'm not sure.
Pre-season, do you remember where they were?
No. Do you have the answer?
I don't.
No.
I don't. We should look this up.
Yeah. Let's not do that. At number 8 is Galway. Number 7 is Armagh. Number 6 is Monaghan. And number 5 is Donegal. So those are the counties that I would refer to as the pretenders. I think every single one of those counties, maybe with the exception of Galway, maybe somewhat controversially, will have serious regrets about how last year went. I think Mayo were significantly better than Galway that day in Croke Park, and if a bounce of a ball had gone differently, I don't think Galway would have got through. But Armagh against Monaghan in that 2-point defeat, Monaghan obviously against Tyrone in that Ulster final, and Donegal in that defeat to Tyrone as well. Michael Murphy missing that penalty and getting sent off. Those are 3 counties with serious regrets with how 2021 went, and will have serious ambitions to do at Tyrone over the next couple of years. The top 4 then.
Can I just ask about Galway?
Yeah.
Are Galway frauds? Are they a fraudulent team in this top 8?
Possibly. I don't know. I think that what we need is a full normal season of choice at the wheel and getting back to where they were in the early stages of 2020. Now, it's probably presumptuous to think that will automatically happen. Maybe 2020 was just this strange bounce that a manager had, and maybe it was relatively fluky. But I think that the quality they have, particularly in the forwards, would suggest that there was a sustainable level that they hit early that year. Like I think was it Tyrone that they absolutely destroyed right before the pandemic began.
Was it not Mayo? Was it not like a massive turnaround? Maybe it was Tyrone. I thought they
in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have it to hand, but I think that there was some result against Tyrone in 2020 where they looked seriously good. Shane Walsh was just incredible that day. And I mean, the questions around Galway will be not so much the fraudulent nature of them. I think that's probably a tad too harsh, but maybe what happens when they do get into the really tough battles.
Super flaky.
I think they've been a little bit flaky for sure over the last little while. They haven't lived up to the reputation that a lot of these players have, and
less than the sum of their parts.
Yes, I think so. I absolutely think that. And like, I mean, the performance against Mayo last year was such a letdown.
Here's a 5-game series for you on a neutral field in Athlone. Maybe not Athlone, a bit too close to Galway. Say Clonus, Derry versus Galway, 5-game series.
I think Galway win that.
Do they?
Yeah. Like, I think. I don't know, but
it's pretty close. It's going to game 5.
Of a 7-game series?
A 5-game
series? Yeah, probably is. Yeah, maybe not. I think Galway could get it done maybe in 4. Like, there is still a good. Like, Derry have been excellent. There's no getting it wrong, but like, I
don't know. I think Galway will end this year not in the top 10, and Derry will be in the top 10.
Right. So, I'm not sure. I think that
they have the ease of the Connacht. Sure, we'll roll you into we'll gently push you into the championship. We'll give you a few months to.
But they've got to play 2 Division 1 teams or 2 Division 1 near Division 1 standard teams in some years. Like I would say that their path is harder than Kerry's path and Dublin's path. It's the second strongest province really in terms of the opposition that they have to face. Like, I mean,
if they respected Roscommon, it would be.
Well, I mean, you got to respect Roscommon. I mean, Roscommon have been better than me than Kildare and Cork.
I'm not saying I don't respect them, but Galway don't. That's the thing. Like,
yeah, well, like, I mean,
look, fair enough. Okay,
I respected them enough to beat them by 5 points last year, and like, I think I think maybe you're underappreciating the base level of this Galway team. That even when they're not good,
I think that like they are the great underachievers of Gaelic football for the last 2 decades.
Yeah,
and that's like putting them in number 8 is based on the muscle memory of Pádraig Joyce as a footballer and Michael Donlan as a footballer and Kevin Walsh as a footballer, as opposed to what they've actually done on the field of play year in, year out over the last few years. There's like a few moments where like everybody has been fit and they've played well in games, but at the end of those games they've lost.
Yeah.
And sometimes they've been up big in those games and they've lost big in those games.
Like, we're going to have to do a big preview of Galway versus Derry this year in the National League. I mean, like, there is huge pressure on Galway to get straight back up to Division 1 this year. Like, I do buy your point that last year's league was weird. Teams got relegated maybe a little bit unfairly, but like, there is like ruthlessness to Division 1 that Galway have, I guess, fell victim to last year, and that doesn't bode well necessarily if you're questioning the stomach they have over the next little while.
Okay, we've gone on way too long here. So
we're
top
4. Number 4 Mayo, number 3 Kerry, number 2 Dublin, number 1 Tyrone.